Hey, Emily Claire McFarland. Today's the 17th of June, nearly your 15th birthday, which is coming up this Friday. I just wanted to touch bases with you and say hello. Hi, how are you doing, girl? Oh, boy. So I had a really enjoyable weekend this weekend. A big part of my weekend, well, actually, I had two main parts. Um, The first part was not so, it was quite enjoyable, but it was just a really lovely gathering of friends and family who were mourning the death of a friend of mine, Eldry Joush. She died recently, and there was a memorial service held in her name Saturday evening at 10 o'clock, 7 o'clock p.m. at Centennial Park. And so I had a chance to gather with friends and talk about things that were important to us and uh, and our memories, our joint memories of Eldry. And I really enjoyed just touching base with a lot of my friends, saying hi to them. I haven't, for some reason, I guess I see them regularly, but maybe not frequently. And so it was good to have conversations with them and say hi and connect with them again. And I made some nice contacts with a lot of people. It's really nice how people get together and support one another. At least my friends do. They always have ideas and suggestions for new activities to do together, and setting up opportunities to have conversations with one another is just awesome. So I've got some appointments I need to make, I want to make, and one of the suggestions I had from a friend, um, she suggested I go to Sunburst Sanctuary. I think it's Sunburst. They're a co-housing community on Highway 1 between Lompoc and Santa Barbara. And in fact, I did go visit them the very next day. I went to a service, a memorial service, or actually some kind of a meditation service, worship service, Monday morning at 10:30 a.m. And I had a really good time. I showed up at around 10 o'clock a.m. and I didn't leave until like 3 o'clock p.m., which was 5 hours later. I didn't necessarily intend to spend 5 hours there, but I don't know. I just found it easy to show up and be there and be present for people there. And so after the memorial service, actually, it wasn't the memorial, it wasn't after the meditation service, there was a brunch meal. And I had the pleasure of sharing that meal with pretty much everyone that was in the compound. And it's a nice, relatively small group. I was kind of surprised about how small the group was. I expected it to be maybe 2 or 3 times larger, but um, really neat environment. They are positioned in this lovely valley. It was just a very natural setting with beautiful mountains and hills, and I saw some wildlife. I saw deer and fences and like a savanna type environment where lots of plant life and animal life. It's really gorgeous. It's very picturesque and very California. And what was quite interesting too is I noticed that I think I got the impression that there was a lot of work going into sort of like the maintenance and the preparation of things. So I really appreciate that. That's really nice to have things taken care of, I guess. They've got easy access to volunteer labor. Everybody's willing to pitch in and make a contribution to help the community. And it's clear that there's some kind of organizing factor, organizing forces that are keeping things up to snuff. People are caring for the bathroom condition and the condition of the kitchen. And, I'm kind of interested in the kind of social forces that are organizing that place. But I had a really good time talking with everyone there. Um, there seemed to be a number of visitors there on Sunday, but there I also got to talk to a lot of the permanent residents, and it was really enjoyable. I liked it. It was neat, and I think I'll have to go again. I'll have to show up again. Unfortunately, my schedule is such that the next 2 weeks or so, actually the next month or so, I'm really busy. So I'm honestly not sure if I'm going to be able to show up to the Sunburst and their events happening over the next month or so. My summer is really quite active, and things are really starting to ramp up the next 2 weeks. There is a lot going on in my life. I've got the solstice parade. I've got my quilting class. I've got the family camp and the family hard camp. I'll be traveling to Santa Cruz in 2 weeks. I've got all kinds of things happening at work, and I just am juggling a ton of stuff. And then I've got meetup groups, and I'm meeting up with Tara Trujillo, and I'm meeting Gene Jacoby, and there's all kinds of stuff going on this week. And then there's your birthday, which is important to me, and I want to make time for that. And I want to communicate with you on a regular basis. And then there's just, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff going down right now. And so I'll be focusing on making sure that all of those things happen, and they happen in a way that makes sense. So, actually, these days I've been thinking a lot about how I can be more productive, right? I'm really good. I really enjoy using to-do lists to get things done. And, in the past, I've used a lot of productivity apps and methods. And I'm really, right now, really what I'm enjoying is Google Keep. I'm finding that is a tool that's rather invaluable to helping me get things done. I love to-do lists and checking checkboxes. It's a big part of how I get things done. And there's also another thing that I've been doing. I've been using my iPad Pro, and I've been using the Apple Pencil to write down, like in longhand form, and even to-do list form, some of the things that are on my mind. That's been really helpful. I've been using apps like Notability, and there's this another app that I always have the trouble remembering what it's called, but it's another writing app, and I use that to organize my thoughts a lot. GoodNotes, that's it, GoodNotes. GoodNotes and Notability are like two of the main apps that I use on my Google iPad Pro platform. I also am using Google Keep on Google iPad Pro. So those tools are really helpful. And in fact, I've got this ongoing Google Keep list that is on my smartphone and on my laptop computer and on my iPad Pro. And I'm thinking about using those um, computers to show the Google Keep app. It continually updates real time. And if I can have those three computers going like at once, I'm thinking that I might be able to control my day to a level with unprecedented accuracy, and just do to-do lists continually. And this is one of the big pushes, one of the big emphases I have in my day. Today, I think I'm going to give it a try where I'm going to just be pressing those to-do list items and writing those to-do list items all the time. Now that I think about it, I'm not going to have the capability of doing that kind of thing. I guess I will. We'll see how it goes. One of the main problems is that at work, I don't have like good internet connectivity with all my gadgets. Like I don't have Wi-Fi there, and I have spotty cellular internet service. So I'm kind of stuck there for some reason. I need to figure out like a to-do and planning methodology that I can use at work to improve my productivity at work. And, at home, I need that too. I think that one of the things that really prevent people from being as productive as they can be is that they just forget the stuff that they want to do. It just slips their mind, you know? And if you have your to-do list in front of your eyes continuously, I think that can be very, very helpful. Just have a to-do list right in front of your mind so that you're continuously reminded of things that you want to do. I think that is really essential because I think there's actually a lot of dead time. But in life, there's a lot of dead time where people have the energy to do stuff, but they just don't do it because they're not reminded, at the right time, at the right place to do those things. It's not in the forefront of their mind. And that's how I think that Google Keep can be really helpful, is that I can have all my computers, my smartphone, my laptop, my iPad Pro out and open and on the Google Keep app, and I can create to-do lists on the fly while I'm walking around mobile, getting things done. I can start creating a to-do list items that I can start checking that I can check them off continuously throughout my day. At home, I think it's going to be easier for me to do that than at work, but maybe I can make that happen on the go. Yeah. I'm thinking I could have gotten the LTE version of my of the iPad Pro. That is the version of the iPad Pro with cellular service, and that means I could get like internet continuously on my device. And I was a little reluctant to get that service because I didn't think that I'd be able to. Basically, it can be costly, right? It's basically like having a second cell phone. But you know what? It might just make sense. I might be able to do that using my my cellular phone service, which is what's my cellular Ting. Ting.com is my cellular phone service. I could possibly do it. What it would mean is like an extra $20 to $40 a month. I don't know, Emily. Hey, Em, I'm kind of curious, what methods of being productive do you use? Are you a to-do list junkie like I am, or do you use some other method? There's a lot of ways to do it. There's like voice memos, or you can, I don't know, you can do mind maps. You can also use software like rememberthemilk.com or todoist.com. There's a lot of people who use those methods. And I think sometimes there are people who just use all paper methods. Like they've got a notebook that they write their to-do list items in, or maybe they've got, I don't know, like flashcards or, 3x5 cards to continuously organize their day. Yeah. There are a lot of ideas out there. I've actually used a lot of those ideas. I've used Remember the Milk and Todoist.com, and I even had just a 3x5 index card method for a while, and that really never took off. I've always found myself dealing with the paper. So I think there's a benefit to using digital productivity methods. And I just haven't been able to find one that's sort of like been a nexus for me and my productivity. Eventually, I'll find one. I'm always trying to improve my productivity and read books related to it. I think the last book that I read about productivity had to do with reducing the number of distractions in my life. And, that's actually a really important tip. Emily, if you wanted to be productive, I think reducing like the distractions that show up in your life. What you might want to do is that on your laptop computer, you might want to use certain apps that prevent you from using other apps. Lock out those apps with a passcode or something like that, or some kind of timer. Another thing you can do is when you go to sleep, make sure your smartphone is, say, in a different room from the room that you're trying to go to sleep in, so that you're not waking up every morning and the first thing you do is look at your smartphone. And maybe you're not also, if you keep the smartphone in a different room than you sleep, then you're not tempted to reach out for that smartphone if you're not able to sleep for a moment, and then possibly disturb your sleep while you surf on the internet or something at nighttime, late at night when you ought to be sleeping. Yeah. There's so many things to do to help your productivity. And I don't know, it's something that's important to me. Why? Because time is a limited resource. And what I found too is that there are ways that you can take advantage of opportunities in life if you plan. If you don't plan, then you're not taking advantage of all the opportunities that you could be. I mean, it really just boils down to that. But, it's not always easy to remember to plan. And even plans, sometimes I made plans and not use them. Because you got to be continuously reminded of what your plans are. And people just move around so much. I know. That's the thing about life. It's so active. I'm continuously doing stuff. I'm glad you're not seeing what's on the right-hand side of my room over here. I've got this table where I'm working on projects. I'm putting together my costume for the solstice parade. I'll be walking on the solstice parade this coming Saturday. And I'm pretty much done with the costume, but I've got just like 3 or 4 things to do before I can be done. And I was really hopeful. I had my fingers crossed that I could get that done yesterday or last weekend. But here's the thing. I didn't get it done. I still have like 3 or 4 more tasks to complete. Easy tasks, simple tasks. But when to get that stuff done? Now, between now and the parade on Saturday, I think I'm gonna be struggling for time to get it all done. And then I also want to keep things tidy while it's happening. There's just something about artwork. I don't know what it is, but it can get really messy. There's like the packaging, and then there's the stuff, and then there's stuff that you think you might use, but you don't use. Creativity is just like its own animal. And somehow you got to keep it contained. And I've got areas in my home where I keep some of my art stuff contained. And, I've got these like corners in my room that I push all of my stuff into, basically these piles, right? I remember, I think Sheila, your mom used to be a piler and just keep things in piles everywhere, here and there. I don't, and you know what? That works. It works. It's a way of organizing, legit. It's a way of organizing stuff. But every once in a while, you need to go into those piles and refactor the files. Now, the word refactor means to just reorganize the files and start from scratch and just reorganize that pile. And you got to do that every once in a while just to make sure that the pile is up to date, current, and that it makes sense. Otherwise, your piles get out of control. And, you don't necessarily want a pile getting out of control. You want to dig into that pile and make sure that it's, that it's there for the reasons that you want it there. So that was my weekend. I did try to take some photographs, but I don't think I took as many photographs as I probably ought to have taken. Oh, man. Time really is a valuable resource. Time, there's something about time. It is the most valuable resource. Actually, also attitude. Time and attitude are probably the most valuable resources. Energy is also quite a valuable resource because you could have time and you could even have planning. But if you don't have the energy to do any of the work, then all that is for naught, right? So it's kind of funny. In order to get stuff done, you need a lot of elements coming together. The planning, the willingness, like the intrinsic motivation, the energy, I don't know. And even all those things take time and energy. You need to get time. You need to, develop that resource and give yourself that time. And energy just doesn't come out of nowhere. Energy comes from a place, and that place is doing exercise regularly. So if you're not doing that, it's really easy to ignore that. It also, having energy is more than just exercising. It's also making sure that you're eating well, drinking water, and that you're resting and sleeping well. So there's this whole thing, all these resources you need to get stuff done. There's ways to maintain. There are methods that you need to use to maintain and support those elements. So it's not uncomplicated. It's complicated. It's the problem of survival, right? The problem of civilization. And humans have been working on this problem for a long, long time. And we're really good at working on the problem. It's a tough problem. It's a tough nut to crack, man. I mean, that's really the reason why we haven't got climate change under control. Is that the planning function and the energy function are too separate on this question, and we're not getting it done. We need some coordination between time, energy, and planning. We need to sort of develop a global nexus where everyone on the planet is helping each other instead of competing to get this competition mentality is really great in some respects in terms of allocation of resources. It's awesome. But when it comes to like novel problems like climate change, ones that affect everybody, the commons, right? The environmental commons, it's pretty inadequate. Market forces don't start working until things start going really wrong. Really wrong. The problem of daily survival is a big problem. And I don't know, it's when climate change happens, I mean, it's not like we've got cataclysms happening all over the world right now. The cataclysms are sort of, I mean, they are happening all over the world, but they're not happening with an amplitude that is causing people to take notice. Or what's happening is that the the consequences of climate change are so subtle and the solutions so difficult um, to find that most of the time people just do nothing about them. That's the problem with subtle problems. Let me tell you, there's a lot of subtle problems related to like our food environment, our medical care system. It's always like the devil's in the details, right? What's wrong and what can we do to fix it? Let's take the food environment, right? There's a big obesity epidemic right now. And when you ask yourself what's wrong, these are very subtle problems. I'll tell you what's wrong with food. What's wrong is that it's easy to overeat every day, every meal. It's just too easy. And the foods that are available are pretty much everything but fruits and vegetables. I mean, they're available, but there are other foods, processed foods are more available. They're just slightly more available. This is a subtle problem. Processed foods are slightly more available than unprocessed foods. Okay. And then fatty foods, particularly foods with saturated fat. There's a lot of different foods with saturated fat out there, and they tend to be pretty available. There's a lot of foods out there that have somewhat higher levels of processed sugar, processed carbohydrate. These are very subtle problems. So there are problems with a lot of foods that have cholesterol in them. A lot of cheeses and meats. Cholesterol is a problem, right? You want to keep that under control, keep that watched, so that you can manage your cholesterol level over time, so you can reduce your chances of heart disease. Now, what I'm describing here is a set of subtle problems in our food environment. And a lot of foods have salt in them. They're a little bit higher in salt than would be desirable. That's another problem. So notice how these problems are really subtle. They're really slight, like, a little bit extra salt, a little bit extra cholesterol, extra saturated fat. More processed foods. The emphasis in our markets are more on processed than unprocessed foods. These are subtle problems. And if you're immersed in this food environment and you see it every day, these subtle problems are just, I mean, when people go out to eat, they don't even think about these ideas. When people are at potlucks, they're not even thinking about, I'm going to possibly be 50 calories over the my target calorie intake for this meal. People aren't thinking. The problems are not in your face, right? The problems are subtle problems. They're hard to discern, I'm loving this bountiful table of food. Oh gosh, there are just fewer unprocessed fruits and vegetables than is desirable on this table. This wonderful spread. Where are the carrots, apples, bananas? The unprocessed foods. The unprocessed bell peppers. Where are those? Unprocessed cauliflower and broccoli. They're not there. They're not available. They're not in a desirable form that I want to eat right away. The salads, where's the salads? And the soups, they're just not around. So these are very subtle problems. And boom, here's where the hammer hits the anvil. Daily ignoring of these subtle problems creates the obesity epidemic, right? It creates heart disease, diabetes, people dying from them every day, right? These are hardcore facts, right? This is how people get killed. But the causes are very subtle. They're very moderate. A lot of people are not even thinking. They're not even thinking about any of these issues when they're eating, when they see a burger or a steak, or even a chicken salad sandwich with French fries. They're not noticing these subtle issues in their food environment. And so when they're fat or have heart attacks or losing relatives, they don't know where to point. Like, what's going on? What's happening? And the problems that people talk about and the doctors bring up, they're subtle, right? It's not like in your face. It's not like, that's why our food environment is so challenging. We've just got so many there's like subtle problems. Same is true with climate change and that problem. It's like, what do we do? What's the problem? Hey, I'll tell you what's the problem. I haven't done a lot of thinking about that subject, but there are subtle problems, like the mix of power inputs from our utilities is heavier on the hydrocarbon fuels than on the sustainable fuels, right? It's just slightly heavier. The mix is heavier on the hydrocarbon fuels instead of geothermal, photovoltaic, wind energy, nuclear energy. So, and because of that subtle mix, it's going to cause big problems down the road. Subtle problems. Things like plastic, right? We use plastic all the time in everything. And again, it's a subtle problem where plastics are just basically in everything now. They're all over the world. There's like litter, right? Where it's in our oceans, it's in our food, it's in our animals. Now we've got these microplastics everywhere, and there's difficulty all over the planet in terms of biodegrading them. And plastics are a big part of our lives, right? Again, it's kind of these subtle consequences that we just may not pick up on, we may not notice. And that's something. Now, the human brain can notice something. Like if there's a snake in front of us, we can pick up on that and react. Like, oh, there's a snake, let's get rid of it, right? That's wonderful. But if there's like a subtle problem, like, oh, these foods have a little bit more cholesterol or a little more salt in them, then it's preferable, our brain just does not pick up on the problem. And we're like, huh? And so this problem with our food environment, the problem with climate change, these problems are going to be continuous. They're going to be around for a long, long time. They're going to cause a lot of pain, a lot of economic hardship. Our brain is just not picking up on them. Our brain picks up on tigers and snakes, and it picks up on sharp sticks, and it picks up on, falls of 10 feet. It picks like, whoa, wait, look at this. I'm at an elevated position. I could fall. Our mind picks up on that stuff, but it doesn't pick up on these small potato problems, like our energy mix is a little bit hydrocarbon heavy. Right? Our brain is not picking up on this problem. And these subtle problems are going to lead to the downfall of our civilization. And they're already taking a serious toll. So That's what the future is, man. So, if you want to protect yourself from issues related to problems in the future, start thinking about subtle problems and start trying to rectify them somehow. It's not easy. It's not easy to pick up on these problems. In society, it's often ignored. How about the problem of animal rights, right? That goes hand in hand with our food environment. It goes hand in hand with climate change. It's probably the next big ethical transition to happen in the future. And but you know what? Not a lot of people are picking up on it. A lot of people are just not getting it. They're not getting it. They're not getting how it's important for animals to live lives of meaning living good lives on the planet, and how important it is for us as a species. It's important for us to partner with these animals and to grow and live good lives with these animals. And the better we treat these animals, the better we're going to be. Better our environment's going to be, the better our food environment's going to be. And but it's subtle. There's millions of years, I mean, literally centuries, millennia, just tens of thousands of years of sort of living in our environment, and things have got to change. We really have to start treating animals better if we want to survive. And we got to be a lot more thoughtful. We got to be more thoughtful with how we treat plants. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but the entirety of human life, in fact, all life on the planet, is dependent on photosynthesis. It's a subtle but important fact. All life on the planet is dependent on photosynthesis. And so really what we need to do is start thinking about how we can use plants to improve our lives. In ways we also need plants to grow and thrive, because they're basically the foundation, the underpinning of our life. And we do need to stop just throwing pesticides on them and herbicides and fungicides. And we need to start managing these plants in ways that are sustainable, because our lives depend on it. And what I mean by plants too, not just living plants, but dead plants too, our fossil fuels. We need to start managing these dead plants. And and also, like I mentioned, food source, like photosynthesis was the key to our survival on the planet. We really need to figure out about how to work more in harmony with nature as it relates to plant foods. I know. And I don't know. We need those antioxidants. We need the anthocyanins. we need the bioflavonoids. We need all those things. It's subtle but important. So I guess I've been sort of on my soapbox, but I'm talking about how subtle problems are really key to solving the problem of human civilization on this planet. That is a serious project. And in order for us to do well and thrive and survive on this project and make sure it goes down well, is we need to sort of be on the lookout for these subtle problems. And then, they only show up as like yellow flags, like, hey, you might want to think about this. They're not in your face. Just the human brain, it just has a hard time dealing with it. So anyway, That's important. Another important thing is mental health. Mental health is key, easy to ignore, but it's the source of a lot of problems. I had a friend die recently on account of violence, interpersonal violence. Reducing interpersonal violence is a big deal, and that is all about the mental environment, right? It's about people managing their mental health. Let me tell you, the solution is not throwing people in cages, in jail cells. That's not going to help. In fact, it's going to make things worse. We need to focus on mental health in our society and in the world. A big problem is in our societies is just this less than adequate focus on mental health. It's a subtle problem, but it's the cause of wars, which kills thousands and thousands of people every year, and then displaces millions and millions in migration, causing economic trouble at boundaries and borders, state borders, troubles with immigration. Um, Mental health is also key when it comes to drug use and overdose. And I mean, these problems are key. Any kind of if you think about problems relating to fraud and force, misuse of force, and just our mental environment. Our mental environment right now is really out of whack. There's very little focus on mental health. Now, mental health is a big part of it's. I'm very interested in mental health of myself personally and my friends and family, and mental health of every person on the planet. And let me tell you, things are not going well. They're not really going in a. I mean, they are going in a fine direction. Just ultimately, I'm actually quite optimistic for the future. There's a lot of apps and artificial intelligence, all kinds of things going down related to there's all kinds of things going down related to there's all kinds of things related to mental health that are going down, things that are moving in a positive direction. For example, positive psychology is happening, and um, uh, there's also the distribution of knowledge relating to psychology, where we've got the internet, we've got TV, and we've got smartphones, we've got apps now that are very helpful, and we got chat bots that are helping people make sense of a lot of thinking errors, helping people sort of counsel people using artificial intelligence. This is a big deal. We've also got virtual reality coming through, and I think that's going to be an amazing resource for helping people work out problems. We've got video teleconferencing technology like Zoom, and I know Facebook has got video teleconferencing possibilities, and we've got like Skype happening, and there's just all kinds of great communication technology. And so I'm really hopeful about the future as it relates to mental health. And so I think the trend is good and positive, but culturally, mental health is still like this fringe problem. But it's so subtle that it affects everything related to like the government budget process, congressional legislative process, judicial processes, and how the courts are packed with people making claims about justice, everything related to law enforcement, the cost of prisons, and war, and interpersonal violence related to suicide, related to even things related to theft and violent crime and sexual assault. And I mean, it's really, it underpins even climate change. Mental health is key. It really is key. It's really the key that can unlock the problem of civilization. It can really help unlock it. And mental health just is not getting the kind of social attention it needs to be getting. It's a subtle problem. Even the problem of religion, which thankfully is getting solved in the Common Era, and it's happening relatively quickly. I have a feeling that a lot of the negative aspects of religion are going to be probably eradicated or minimized within the next 20 or 30 years. What are some of the major problems with the religion are going to be just gone, which I'm so glad to know about. But I wish it would take less time than that. It's going to take a good 20 or 30 years for it to be resolved. And I'm so happy. It'll be good for the problem of civilization for humankind on this planet, for us to really get it sorted about what kind of behavior is appropriate and not. And, I think 20 or 30 years, particularly with a focus on mental health, will be really helpful for helping religions to start becoming the sources of peace and acceptance that we need them to be on this planet. And they're also a source of virtue production and strength production, personal strength, personal virtue. We need that on the planet. We need that kind of focus. But unfortunately, there are some aspects of religion that do not support that kind of stuff. And thankfully, I think the direction is really going well with that idea. So, yeah, the focus on mental health, again, subtle problems. It's kind of interesting. Our society does a pretty good job of dealing with people who are in mental health crisis, right? Like suicide prevention programs, like rape support programs, homelessness support programs. We try to do a good job when it comes to our veterans and the mental problems that they have as a result of war making. And so that's good. That's good. But these are like acute solutions. These are, our attention is being brought to acute problems and not chronic problems. Chronic problems related to problems with media and media consumption, and problems related to bias, and particularly things like racism and stuff like that. We're having trouble in those areas, particularly also when it comes to things like anger management with road rage, and we're just not getting through. And there's a lot of violent crime, a lot more than there needs to be. Particularly this problem of interpersonal violence. I think as a society, as a community, we really need to come together, start supporting each other's mental health and the systems in our society that sort of support healthy mental outlooks and healthy attitudes. Even at our workplaces, people need to start, I think people undervalue the benefits of work and employers and having a job, and the real psychological need for sort of group productivity and group efforts that corporations are so good, and like government government systems and bureaucracies are so good at making happen. I think we undervalue just what amazing benefits we get from our commercial and federal sectors. And I think it'd be great if people just had a little bit more gratitude for how amazing these forces are in organizing and making our lives livable. Yeah. And how much happiness is generated. Potential happiness can be generated from this work. We need to give ourselves credit, and to see just how amazing these forces of organization and benefit are for us all. So anyway, I think mental health is an area that our civilization needs to focus on. It really underpins a lot of the problems that are going on in the world, and I'm actually optimistic about the direction that that's going. So anyway, I guess I'm going to start wrapping things up here, Em. So a big point in my conversation right now is just talking to you about how a lot of problems in life, a lot of the sticky problems are subtle problems that people aren't paying so much attention to, like our relationship to plants, our relationship to animals, our relationship to climate change, our relationship to our own mental health and other people's mental health. And, we'll figure out a way to work around these problems eventually. And so I guess with that message on the eve of your birthday, hopefully I'm inspiring you to become a more thoughtful thinker, and a more thoughtful actor in your world. Hopefully I'm helping you to focus on ideas that can help you support your virtues and strengths, to help you support your goals and your mental health. And I don't know, maybe, if I could give you just a little bit of hope, a little bit of optimism about the future, then I think I might have done my job today. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you continue to have an amazing summer vacation, and I'll talk to you later, girl. Bye-bye.